Hi, I'm Michael Smith for Nevada Trails. Today I have a very special show. I have Shelly Aldean, a supervisor for Carson City, who's on the show, and she's going to tell me about a lot of things. But first, I know her from the TRPA, and I've been doing the TRPA, I don't know, 4 or 5 years in there someplace. Nancy McDermott asked me to go there and tape them, and I started with just getting equipment from the library, and you learn a lot from being at those meetings.
Well, you do, Michael, and believe me, I appreciate your stamina because it's hard enough for members of the board to sit through those long two-day meetings.
The reason I brought that up is I watch people because that's what I do. I'm there for the whole time, and I don't mean to say anything. I'm not trying to say anything negative about any other board member, but you do your homework.
I try.
I could tell who reads their packets and who doesn't, and from what I heard, those packets are giant.
They are. You know, I was commenting to a friend who was wondering if I had any loftier ambitions politically, and I said, you know, if I were a member of Congress, I'd still be reading the health care package.
Well, yeah.
Long after it was passed, because I'm compulsive about that. I think that's why people hire us to do a job, and to be thorough, to be, you know, systematic and methodical, and to make sure that we're making the very best decisions on their behalf. And you can't do that if you haven't reviewed the material thoroughly and thoroughly understand it.
Well, not only do you review the material, this is from my observation, you will always inquire about something on almost every subject. And a lot of people just say pass as it goes around the table of, you know, left to right, left to right. And you'll say something and it's very, very good, and you're very observant, and it's very, very clear, and then you don't fall asleep.
Well, I don't nod off. That's why I have a supply of sugary treats to make sure that my blood sugar level is high enough so I don't doze off during the meeting.
Yeah, we're talking these meetings go 12 hours, and they don't take any breaks, and they get, you know, maybe some food while they're working.
Right.
It's
right. It's just definitely a labor of love, and of course there are a lot of, like everything in the basin, everything we deal with at TRPA is contentious. And the reason as you know, each of the local jurisdictions around the basin has a seat on the TRPA governing board, and the design of the membership is basically controlled by the compact, and which was it's a bi-state document that was adopted by Congress. So we are kind of an unusual governmental body. But we do have local representation on the board, and when I was originally appointed to the Carson City Board of Supervisors in 2003, after John Plank unfortunately passed away during his term, there were 2 years left on his term, and I was selected to replace him. The first assignment I requested was appointment to the TRPA Governing Board, because I've been involved in Tahoe Basin issues for a long time, and I thought that I could lend kind of a unique perspective. My family's been in the development business for many years. We have a couple of development projects at Lake Tahoe, but I love Lake Tahoe. I grew up there as a child during my summer, when I was out of school.
Which shore?
Pardon?
That seems to be basic at the meetings.
Outside of Tahoe City, actually. And
I love that place.
It's beautiful, and my family still maintains a family home. In fact,
Tahoe City?
Yes, my parents bought it. It was interesting. It was originally owned by the Bliss family when they owned the Tahoe Tavern. And my parents bought it in the late 1950s, and it was the dump. It's a lakefront property, but it was used as a dump for the Tahoe Tavern. So even today, when I'm out in the yard doing gardening, I'll find these little pottery shards, which are remnants of the Tahoe Tavern.
We should have like an architectural dig at your place.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
They're doing it all over Nevada. They can find some really important stuff.
They could, who knows? But anyway, it was because of my long-time association with the lake that I requested that assignment. And so I've been on the TRPA governing board now for 7.5 years.
What kind of changes have you seen in the lake in that 7.5 years? Or that your whole life, I mean?
Well, you know, there was a period of, I would characterize it as relatively uncontrolled growth at Lake Tahoe, and of course that's one of the reasons why the TRPA was formed. TRPA is very, very controversial. One of the reasons I wanted to join the TRPA board is I wanted to bring it back to center, because, you know, we're nearly at build-out in the Tahoe Basin. There aren't a lot of lots that haven't already been acquired through public acquisition programs that remain to be developed. And so now we're focusing on redevelopment. And so the new mantra for the agency is environmental redevelopment, because we realize that the funding that we've been receiving historically from the federal government, from the state governments, during tough economic times like the one we're in right now, you know, that funding is going to continue to diminish. And so we need to partner with the private sector through well-planned, well-executed developments to achieve and accomplish the water quality improvements that we all desire. And so I've been very enthusiastic about the new direction that the agency has taken. Because,
I love it.
Well, it's productive, it's progressive, you know. And for the longest time, the agency was known as an agency that just said no, you know. Of course, now we're being accused by the environmental groups of just saying yes, you know, to every development that comes before the agency. What people don't realize is that these developments, the major projects that come before us, have already been fully vetted by staff. You know, and a lot of projects don't come before us because they don't make it that far along in the process. And so we have the very best projects coming before the governing board for review and final approval. And so as I say, Michael, I'm delighted with the direction that the agency is taking. It's more moderate, it's more progressive. I think it's going to ultimately have a substantial impact on water quality and the mandate that is obviously we're operating under now to significantly reduce the small particles, the fine particles that make their way into Lake Tahoe off of roadways and uncontrolled runoff from the urban areas. And that's what the TMDL is all about, is reducing that loading.
Well, I tell you that, back to Tahoe City, do you ever go to the Winter Festival there?
I don't.
No?
I don't.
I was a duck in the parade there once.
A duck.
At the snow festival.
Oh, was that right?
I have a duck suit. I entertain people. So we did the Tahoe City, the whole thing, and then we got down to the end, and I was with a clown, and he took off in his car, and I had to walk back up in my duck suit because you would go down a mountain or a hill.
Well, you could have just scooted.
But if you have duck fins on, it's really tough to get up the hill. And the kids I entertained on the way down were going, "Here comes the duck."
So now you have more empathy for ducks, right?
No, I have more empathy for like walking around in a heavy costume. But the key was I got to know Tahoe City brick by brick, and the people there are really nice. So that's one reason I got involved with Lake Tahoe too. Was when I first got there, the TRPA were evil, the bad people. So when I started filming them, you two, I would observe everybody, and everyone wasn't on the same page. And it made me upset. But now I'm very happy. I mean, when I'm there, I just see progress, movement, and if you do have a property that's on the fence for some issue, you'll spend just as much time on that in a meeting for them as you will with one of the big guys. And I really respect that.
Absolutely. I mean, we have diversity on the board, philosophical diversity, but there aren't many obstructionists, what I would characterize as people who, you know, will not entertain another notion. In other words, they are so committed to stopping development because they feel that development is inherently bad that they won't vote for any project. And I don't see that on the board. And it used to be that was kind of business as usual. You know, most of the projects, or many of the projects coming before the board, were denied. Now, because we've raised the bar so significantly in terms of achieving those environmental goals and looking at the so-called triple bottom line, you know, we not only have to focus on the environment, we have to focus on the economy and the social fabric because it's all intertwined. It's part of a holistic whole. And so, you know, as a consequence of that, all of the board members, even though some are more environmentally oriented than others, are really taking their responsibilities seriously and looking at these projects for what they have to offer in terms of improving the developed environment at Lake Tahoe and helping the agency achieve its environmental goals.
Well, I know in my little area in South Lake Tahoe, my neighborhood has never been cleaner. The streets are you're getting the street sweepers are coming by, and all that stuff that used to probably flow in the lake or go in the air is getting cleaned up. And I talked to Hal about it, and Hal said it's from a grant from somebody. But
the street sweepers.
Keep it going.
Yeah.
You're playing the game right.
Absolutely.
And when I say stewardship of the lake, I think about everybody on that board now. Before I didn't think that way, now I do. Right. And I've tested a few people on some debates, but overall, I think the team is a good team. And your leader is awesome.
I agree. Yeah, Joanne Marquetta. She, in fact, when John Singlob announced his intention to leave, I was on the interview committee for Joanne when she was hired as general counsel for the agency, and I watched her during the interceding years and realized that, you know, one of the things that attracted me to her as a candidate for general counsel was the fact that she believes in negotiating settlements. She doesn't think that litigation is the answer, you know, to every conflict. And I liked that approach. And so she has taken this kind of moderate stance, and translated that into her new executive role as executive director for the agency. And she is a negotiator. She has a very pleasant demeanor about her. She's not threatening. She's not dogmatic. And those are wonderful qualities, and that's why people are, I think, very enthusiastic about her leadership and about the role that she's going to play now and in the future in helping the agency achieve its goals.
Well, I thought when John left that whoever got that job had it made because of her, and then when someone said hire her, I said, brilliant. Why didn't I think of that? That's brilliant because she has herself in in a new role, and she can trust herself. Now she has a young person for her right hand, and that young person will get all this experience, but she is the right person, and she could tell that she loves that lake and she loves that job, and it's the right place and the right time for her. I told her it's fate. It has to be fate. You're in the right place at the right time for you.
Well, I think I was one of the first people to call her when John announced his intentions to leave the agency, and she was a little hesitant. She had to give it some serious thought. But I think I agree with you. She made the right decision. She's the right leader for the right time in the history of the agency, and she's got the determination and tenacity to see it through. And so I'm delighted. The other critical thing was we were, as we were supposed to have adopted the updated regional plan in 2007. Hence Pathway 2007.
Yes.
Now 2010, and we're still working on it. But because we were right in the middle of a regional plan update, bringing in a new executive director who had the knowledge, and the institutional memory to lead the agency through this very difficult period, it would have been impossible to recruit from outside. And so we really had to look to our staff and our internal talent to find the leadership we needed. And thankfully, Joanna was there.
Well, another person I'm really impressed with that you picked up was Harmon Zuckerman. I had known him before on Douglas County, and he's a superstar. And when you got he's from the University of Pennsylvania, and it's a very intelligent school.
Yeah.
And I think he's added a lot of plus to her ammunition.
He has. Well, because, when you have such a diversity of opinion, not only on the governing board itself, but in the community in general, you need somebody who can do a good job of taking complex issues and distilling them into understandable components. And that's what Harmon has done, and I think he's done it very effectively.
With the whole APC. He has them all working together. And
Absolutely.
I would used to tape those meetings, and they're all working together.
Right.
I mean, it's just a team.
Right.
I'm just very amazed about the whole process, how things have changed so fast.
Yeah, I'm very impressed and very hopeful that we can get this done.
Well, I think
soon.
so. You're on the right path. Well, one of your passions also is the Capital City Circles, and you told me, and I just don't know what it is.
Okay. Capital City Circles Initiative is based on a program that was actually first started in Canada, made its way down into the States, was really kind of refined back in Minnesota. And Kathy Wolf, who works for Health and Human Services here in Carson City, learned about the program and thought it was a perfect fit for Carson. And she approached me about it, and it's kind of evolved into a public-private partnership between the Health and Human Services Department in Carson City and a nonprofit, which is called the Capital City Circles Initiative.
Okay.
And I am currently chairing the nonprofit, and I'm very passionate about this program because it's a self-help initiative. So many of our welfare programs merely provide handouts. They don't change mindsets. They don't really transform lives. The unique thing about this program is that we recruit, we're very particular about the people that we recruit for the program because they have to be at a point in their lives, and many of them come from generational poverty, where they are prepared to make a change. A significant transformational change. So we recruit these families. Many of them are headed by single women. And they go through a 20-week Getting Ahead, what we call the Getting Ahead program, and they learn about everything from finances, how to balance your checkbook, avoiding the pitfalls of hard money lending, learning about how to function in middle-class America, because many of them have never experienced that before.
Well, I think that's very important for one reason. I remember when I had my head injury, I lost all my math skills. Well, I would think that'd be the same if somebody doesn't have any education.
Right.
A lot
Exactly
of people,
right.
I've met a lot of people who can't even read.
Right.
Well, after I lost my math skills, I don't think there's a month that's gone by that I'm getting help from the bank for bouncing this, bouncing that, and they just take care of me. because they just know I don't know how to add and subtract.
Right.
And it's terrible. But so in your case, if a family doesn't know how to do that, and you have 4 people, and then you're going to get in trouble with the law, because you have to really cover your back, because it's a dangerous.
Listen,
education's so important.
You're right. You're right. And if we can, through education, and but let me just explain how the program works. We put the families through this very intense 20-week program. They graduate, and then we recruit and assign them allies, community allies. These are people in middle and upper class classes of our city, who basically serve as extended family members. The whole point behind the program is not to enable our circle leaders, as we call them, and it's the person who is in poverty who leads the conversation, because they're the ones who have to take charge of their lives. They're the ones who have to build their self-sufficiency with the aid of their allies, who are people in the community who have skill sets that they can share with the circle leaders, the families in the program. And it's worked amazingly well. I mean, it's been transformational for a lot of these families. And Dina Fippen, who's our Circles coordinator, told our board just recently that they had a meeting with a group of bankers in town at one of the Guiding Coalition meetings, and now all of our families, for the first time in some cases in their lives, they have checking accounts and savings accounts.
Fantastic.
You know, and so, I mean, that's what welfare should be all about, is creating self-sufficiency, not merely perpetuating the dependence upon the system, because you're not transforming anything, you're merely perpetuating the problem. And that's why I think if we could, if we could translate this into a national program, we would be far better off than merely making money available to people. Once it's spent, they need more. We're just creating increased dependency. We're not cultivating independence. And so that's why this program is so interesting and has excited so many people who serve on my board. I mean, we've got a stellar group. We've got Kali Hutter from ClickBond. We've got Mayor Kroll. We've got Judge Tatro. We've got Sheriff Furlong, Ann McQuarrie, just a whole variety of people in the community who are movers and shakers, who are as impressed by the potential of this program as I am.
Excellent.
So,
well, if you're a person that could qualify for this program, how would they get a hold of you?
They need to contact Health and Human Services, and that number is 887-2190, and speak with Dina Fippen. Dina Fippen is our Circles coordinator.
Because a 20-week course, that's a lot of information.
And it's a lot of commitment, but once they make it through, they have a vested interest in ensuring that they put that knowledge, newfound knowledge, to good use. And so, yes, if not only people who are interested in becoming circle leaders and going through the program, but people who are interested in becoming community allies or have other skills that might be useful to the organization, I really encourage them to contact Dina at Health and Human Services. And again, that number is 887-2190.
I've been running into a lot of Hispanic people who have been having problems and challenges in our communities. They could qualify for this too?
They could possibly qualify. We actually have a Circles coach who is a young lady who works for Health and Human Services, who's now spending part of her time assisting Dina Fippen. Her name is Brenda Sillis, and she is bilingual. So that would certainly make that a lot simpler for any Hispanic family who wants to qualify for the program.
Yeah, because that's a big deal. So that sounds like you really have a
Yeah.
passion. You're in charge of this, did you say?
Well, I serve as the chair for the nonprofit. And the relationship is this. We have grant funding through the city to support the program, but there are costs that the city isn't able to cover. And so our nonprofit raises money independently of the city to supplement the budget for the Circles initiative. And we provide guidance and consultation with staff to make the program work. It's kind of a prototypical private-public partnership, and it works very well.
So the private, if I have a company and I want to get involved, I can call that same number you just
Absolutely.
gave out. And if I want to donate, I can give you a call and just find out the address.
Absolutely.
Because you never know, some of them out there might want to donate some money.
And I wish they would. I mean, this project really needs to succeed because it is innovative and as I said, made a huge difference in the lives of the people that we've graduated from the program. So.
Well, I try on a weekly basis to get bread to people who need food. And I just think this is a step so much up higher because now I give them food, they can know how to go out and get their own bread and then help other people.
Well, it's the Christian philosophy. If you teach a man to fish, you
Yeah.
won't have to give him fish.
Yeah.
He
a lot
can
of it is
fend for himself.
Just like I said, a little education, a little training, and
Right.
But helping hand is a big deal because a lot of people don't get that mentorship.
That's exactly right. And we like to say it's a hand up, not a handout.
Yeah, and in my work with disabled people, a lot of people kind of gave up and stopped trying because they are kind of stuck. And a lot of my show is getting people the visibility they can go out and do things because they're not stuck, and if they can get out there and try something, it's not that bad. But I don't know how much you were working with disabled people, but anytime you have something like your program work, it's a good thing to think they can do things rather than stay home and watch TV.
Well, and these people are very proud. I mean,
Yeah.
they would far prefer not to be on public assistance, and that's why they work so hard to become self-sufficient.
Oh yeah, because this, well, I'm not being sexist, but a man, we got the pride, and I'm sure women have the same pride.
Right.
And it's just the way we kind of grew up, you don't expect to end up in that situation.
Absolutely. And a lot of it is circumstantial, but a lot of these families come from generational poverty. And of course, as a consequence, they have a very powerful mindset that needs to be changed because they need to they need to think like middle-class Americans. And that's the whole point of the program, is to change attitudes, change mindsets, and ultimately change the process so that we are providing public assistance not as an interim way of dealing with a problem, but as a way of dealing with that problem on a permanent and not a temporary basis.
Well, I've run ghetto supermarkets in my younger days, and I ran one in Columbus, Ohio, and I ran one in Pittsburgh. And in both areas I found out was a lot of the dreams of younger people, they don't have dreams. They don't have any expectations. It's just a big deal to have a little bag boy job or cashier,
Right.
but they don't have dreams. And then what dreams they do have aren't real, aren't potential. So I think this is something where someone can have a dream, create dreams to be, do something and have their own place and have their own car and have their own responsibilities.
Right.
And like I said, a bank account and checking in savings and
You bet.
and take care of their kids better than what they had to go through because they understand how hard it is to get out.
Right. Well, when we graduated our first class, I was very impressed by how articulate and poised these graduates were. Many of them had never done any public speaking before, but what it has done is instilled them with a sense of purpose, self-worth, and confidence. And so, I'm convinced that people can accomplish anything if they have those attributes, and a lot of tenacity and a lot of patience.
Well, I can see another thing in you. You can see potential in people. So that's probably your gift to this area.
Well, I hope so.
Yeah, so because if you're going to interview them, you have to be able to see potential or not.
That's true.
And,
That's very true.
Well, what are you talking about for your supervisor job? Are you still
Well,
running for another 4 years? Or are you going to see you at the TRPA? Or
Actually, I have 2 years left on my term, my
Okay.
current term. So thankfully, I'm not running for re-election this year. I
know it's terrible. I didn't know if our board would change up at the lake or not.
Yeah, well, you never know. I know that Nancy McDermott, for example, is running for re-election, and and that's one of the challenges at the TRPA is that you have, or with any board for that matter, but because of the issues are so complex at TRPA, and because it takes so long to get anything accomplished, when you have this kind of constant turnover on the board, it's a very steep learning curve for people coming on the board for the first time, and it makes it a little more challenging, to get consistent change and to consistently address the problems in a uniform way when you have different personalities coming on board with different philosophies and different mindsets. But we'll get there.
Well, I know some of the new people say they've been here a year and they're still trying to catch up.
Yeah, yeah.
And some of the Vegas people, it's just hard.
It is. It is.
And I don't know if they can stay overnight or what they do, how they do their living arrangements, but they have the passion too. I'm not going to say anything against them for living.
No.
They're part of the team.
Absolutely. Well, and Lake Tahoe is a national treasure, and so I think it's appropriate that we have not only the local jurisdictions represented on the board, but we have people coming from the Bay Area and Sacramento and from Las Vegas who live outside of the basin but still have a passion for the lake.
Well, back to being in Carson area.
Yes.
What other areas are you involved in?
Well, let's see. I'm the chair of the RTC, our Regional Transportation Commission.
Really?
And I hate to say that because there's so much there's so much construction going on around town. And in fact, I just on my way to the studio, I met with a local business person briefly to talk about the Roop Street widening project. He's one of the impacted businesses, and it's always difficult. I mean, we need to get the work done. We have a fairly narrow window of time in which the weather permits us to do these roadway projects, and I know it's very difficult for businesses to tolerate the constant disruption, but the good thing is we have the money to spend on these projects.
Well, one thing I'm curious, now that you have the bypass, are they going to turn the downtown into the way it was in the past? I heard that mentioned.
We did a series of charrettes a couple of years ago, which involved a large segment of our population.
Is it like charades?
Something like that.
Okay.
A charrette is, we actually hired Winston Associates to come in and help lead the discussion about what we want downtown Carson City to look like. We are actually going to be taking from Arrowhead to Fairview, of course the freeway ends at Fairview, the city will be taking ownership of that section of downtown Carson Street on the 1st of July. We will be assuming that responsibility from NDOT. The good thing about that, even though it adds to our the expense of maintenance, although we did get some compensation from NDOT and, in recognition of the fact that we're going to have additional pavement to maintain, it gives us a lot more autonomy. We can determine what we want to do in the downtown area. And out of that charrette process came the idea of narrowing the streets, widening the sidewalks, so you can have outdoor cafes, using basically, we're going to have some parallel parking. We're going to return parking to Carson Street.
See, that's what I'm talking about, because when my parents were here just recently, they bought me a car. You see that new car out in the front? Well, I'll show you the car later.
Okay.
So I'm helping the economy by bringing in tourists.
Attaboy.
But they stayed at the Best Western and Carson Station, they call it too.
Right.
And I'm a historian. I've been looking at all the old pictures, and I'm thinking, they had trees downtown, shade trees. And why? I could see why, because of the buildup of traffic.
Well,
but now you got the chance to right a wrong.
Yeah.
You could put it back, like one of the people I really enjoy is the Coma Coffee people. Go there and I film Chris Bear playing music, and it's like you said, a cafe outside too. It'd be so much nicer.
Well, and there was a reason for that. In 1969, they basically took parking off of Carson Street and they put in the medians, and that was because there was some money available through the Lady Bird Johnson Highway Beautification Program. And, I don't fault, the city fathers and mothers who did that, because they thought it was in the best interest of Carson City, but it was really the death knell for downtown business, because people like to park close to where they shop, and all of a sudden we had no parking on the main street. There's ample parking downtown for the most part, but if you're coming in from out of the area, you don't necessarily know where that parking is located.
Exactly.
And so we're trying to make downtown more pedestrian friendly. Now, it's about a $10 million project, so it's not going to happen overnight. But at least we're kind of masters of our own fate, because now we'll own Carson Street. We won't have to get permission from NDOT, to do the things we want to do to make the downtown more pedestrian friendly, and kind of reunite those buildings with as I said, broad sidewalks and parallel parking along the street, lots of planters, trees.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's going to look not exactly the way it looked back prior to 1969, but I think it's going to be a lot more inviting to shoppers and residents.
Well, with the Capitol so beautiful, and it'd just be so great. And,
I agree.
Well, my parents, they've been in many places in this region, and they think they're the best area for nice people. Just everyone's friendly. I took them to the governor's mansion, and Helen gave us a tour. And,
oh, great.
But they've been to the Ridge, and they've been to staying in Tahoe, and they've been to staying at the Carson Valley Inn. Well, we're out of time.
Oh my goodness! I just want to make one comment.
Yes,
we are our worst critics.
Yes.
Because I was talking to Ronnie Hanneman from the Chamber. She was talking to some folks from out of town, and they said, "We love your city. It's clean and neat and inviting." And yet, when you talk to residents in Carson City, they love Carson City, but they are more critical than anyone else in terms of what needs to be done to make it even more livable and a better place to call home.
Might be to each other, but to out-of-state people, my parents are treated like gold.
Good. That's
and
good
we
to
really
hear.
appreciate that.
Excellent.
Well, Shelly Aldean.
Michael, thank you very much.
Thank you for being
It's
on
been
the
a pleasure.
Trails.
You bet.
Thank you very much.